since we've been documenting this ShyTac fix, I'm going to go ahead and do another scope mounting tutorial. Just because, just because. We just affixed this scope base down forever more solid with a high-grade High-Sol. I think it's made by High-Sol. Anyway, with a good epoxy mixed in an exacting ratio under good temperature conditions. It's pinned, screwed, and glued down. And it's on there. It should be on there forever. I mean, forever is a stupid term. I'm just throwing that out. It's not on there forever by any means. I just took it off for the beginning of this video series. Easily gotten back up. But we're going to go through and I'm going to show you some things that I do. Right up here I keep medical grade lanolin butter. And I use it a lot for mounting scopes. Now for doing the bases, I can get away with things cheesier than lanolin if I want. So it becomes a matter of, okay, I'm going to look and see how hard it is to get to it on this particular one. I want to say that on this particular set of bases, these are Night Force bases, I can get into the threads nicely with some lanolin. So I will use, there's a lot of, I'm not going to get into an argument with anybody about appropriateness or better or, you know, there's a lot of tests out there of different lubricants. I use two lubricants a lot. Pure lanolin and a product called fluid film, which again is just lanolin in a more liquid form. Don't know why. Hate sheep, don't even like mutton. But the one thing they can do is they make a nice... So, I'm going to go down into here. This stuff, in my opinion, just lasts longer than other stuff. It's really gooey, it's really gummy, it's sticky, it's like bubble gum. And it gives me accurate torque readings. When that's appropriate. It's just like butter. I mean, the difference between taking these off, putting a little lanolin in there on the threads, and putting them back on is remarkable. As I said, it's sticky stuff, but it really works well. Sticky and it smells like seeps. I was talking to my buddy Jesse about that. I said no matter how expensive a lanolin you buy, this stuff's not marked medical grade, even though it's touted as, and it is. It's totally harmless to human. But I have some that's actually marked medical grade for use in a hospital room. Still smells like sheep. I brought that up to him and he said, well, I think that is the smell, isn't it? Legit, dude. What do I know? Yeah, it's as close as anything. Now, those of you that want to do inch pounds and stuff, go ahead. If you're not calibrated to this, you might just want to do that. I would never diss on that. But what I'm doing, which is a big old hairy lapping video, tell it one more time in case you didn't see the other video. These were invented, as far as I know, by a guy named John Wary, Cocapelli Products. This is the only way to check for alignment in the scope. Unfortunately, these are the wrong size and my 30mm ones are loaned out right now. This might be a 34 anyway. Okay. But I want to show these off because mounting a scope is a big deal. Enough said. If it's not to you, fine. I'm going to use a different compound this time than I did last time. Find out how close these things are right from the factory. It's not important what you use really, it's more the method and the fact that you do it. And I prefer an oil-based product, a solvent-based product, because cleanup here in the gun room is a lot easier, here in the reloading room. Now there's a lot of people out there that sell a lot of products, and there are a lot of people who believe fervently that if you buy a good base, if you pay $200 or $300 for your base and hundreds of dollars for your rings, that you don't need any of this stuff. Well, trust me, in an environment where cost is no object, a person can actually look objectively at ideas like that and test them. This is not a cheap gun. Don't know what it is, but I'll bet it would be really easy to say that once I put this whatever big old Night Force on it, it's a $10,000 gun. I don't think that would be unfair. So what? Doesn't mean the alignment is all that. Yeah, it's cool and it's cooler, but these rings, whew, I mean, these bad boys are terrible. I'm gonna do some more before I'm gonna have to do a bunch more before I even roll it into the camera, because right now I barely have any silver showing. And I'm talking this thing, these are out of round, out of alignment, these are not pretty. Now, this is a really kludgy way to do this. I'm doing it because this is where I feel I'm used to the lighting. I'm used to the way this right here records and reacts. I'm not a camera guy, I'm not a filmographer, I don't know anything about this kind of stuff. I'm just trying to get light on the subject in such a way that I can show what I'm doing without messing it up. So I have very, very much changed this surface already with this lapping compound that I'm using. It started out very gritty and very hard to move. I have loosened it up tremendously. I've done a lot of work in there right now. Enough that I think I can show the camera how far it's gone. You've watched it happen, you've heard the grinding, you've seen the compound, you've seen how dirty the rod came out, so you know that I've removed a measurable amount of material. Now let me see if I can get into the camera what it is that we've accomplished. This side here, looks about the same. It's all black in the middle, and I'm hitting on both sides. So I'm not gonna, that camera's lashed down to the cart. So I'm not gonna get creative like a camera person would and show you angles and stuff, because I don't care about you enough to. Right now, I'm touching the anodizing everywhere. And that might be as far as I need to go. This anodizing is showing scratches down here in the bottom, and it's a pretty heavy anodizing. So I might just, and by the way, the alignment on this is surprisingly good. I think I'm going to take one more run through here. I'm still not happy with, I want to see more silver than that. And some can argue legitimately that I'm taking it too far. But I only know one thing to do, one way to do things, and that's better than I did the last time. If that makes any sense. Never go backwards. And right now, I consider this to be the best. So I'm going to back this up now. Now the mounting and stuff I could go through, and I'm tempted to because there's so much poorly mounted stuff out there. Let me just say this. When I build a gun, I didn't build this one, so I'd have to go back through and remeasure everything. I take measurements early on, and I set it up in such a way that I can ensure myself that the center line of the bore will end up directly below the center line of the scope, hopefully crosshairs. I take pains to try get it, and then when I actually have a plumb bob hanging out on my 100-yard target. I don't have a plumb bob now. I've actually got one of the sheets of plywood is cut plumb, so that I can set up in here, level in a gun, and set the scope level on the plywood at my 100-yard, and know that the gun and the scope relative to each other, we've achieved verticality on both of these. Now they might be 100 thou one way or the other. I don't know. 100 thou is a long ways. They might be a few thousandths one way or the other out of parallel. But I can assure myself, and then I shoot out to, I only shoot to 600 here because that's all I have without a hassle. I have to go up the mountain and shoot back to get 1,000 or 1,400. It's just not worth the pain. So at 600 I'll track up, or easier than that, people. It's so easy to get hung up on needing that 600 yard. I have the 600 yard right here. But do I need it? No. Do something called a tall target. Cut yourself a sheet of plywood, long and tall, and run up and down that plywood 20, 30 inches. Run through your scope and get it running and tracking on the vertical plane. Once you get the gun set up and tractable, it requires some of that. You have to have a level on the firearm, and when that's running level, you have to ensure that that your scope tracks up and down regardless of anything else. Those are the two things. I try hard to make sure that the one is set over and above the other. But that's not something that any normal person can do anything about unless you're building a gun from scratch. So even if you are a little bit out, as long as it's tracking straight up and down, in the real world, that even 1/10 of an inch, if in a really crazy situation it were as much as 1/10 of an inch, even that's not going to show up. It's going to be gone into the dirt by 300 yards. And after that, it won't even matter at all. But what I do see is a lot of guys holding the gun this way, got a scope this way, they're tracking off from each other, they're crossing over, they're blaming it on all the things I'm ranting about. You know, the chance that any one of you is ever going to see or experience actual real world spin drift is vanishingly small. And unless you're shooting a bench rest setup, I'm going to call BS on anybody who talks about spin drift. Man, I don't know what it is about this camera, but I drop more stuff when I'm distracted. Wow. Just not paying attention, I guess. See, now this works really good. I now have full compound all the way around, where before I had a couple of little gaps in the compound. So I'm now getting abrasive grit on every surface, and while we're not silvered out, we can definitely see that we are touched down. We are actually getting contact on either anodized surface, or we've silvered it up. I'll turn this one more time and let you take a look. Now, I did take some measurements ahead of time on this. I've mounted the two scopes on these two guns for this client in the past, and I saved my numbers. I know what his eye relief is. I know where to put him. I'm not going to bore you with all of that. I just wanted to throw this up and say, done properly, a scope needs to be, first of all, the base needs to be epoxied down, or it has to have a series of pins, or it has to be pin fitted somehow. What I love is a good pin system so that I can take this off when I'm changing barrels. This guy's never going to change this barrel, even though it'll eat up. If I had it, man, the barrel wouldn't last a year. But I think you can probably see now, and if you can't, you can see quite a bit of silver there. Now here's where I'm going to leave this off with one other thing. To not mark these, I do this finger grease thing last of all. This picks up the last little bit of residue. Now I've taken an athletic bag and cut it open so that I have loose rosin in here. Now I've done some big guns in the past with very heavy scopes where I've actually had to not epoxy bed the scope into the rings, but epoxy the scope into the rings. This due to the balance of scope to gun weight to whatever. You know, when I build a lightweight hunting gun and a guy insists on one, I got a big heavy scope on it. I've seen times when the gun tries to walk right out from under the scope. This is not going to happen. Yeah, it's a big cartridge, but it also is not mild, not mellow, but it's not a sharp, it's not a bad kicker. It slaps pretty good. It's like a 50 BMG. There are a lot of guns that are harder on scopes than a BMG. This is kind of like that. So I just wanted to show a few of the other details here. In this case, I had already checked the caps, and these caps I did not feel needed to be addressed. I just wanted to bed down into the bottom. So I do a little of this. We are on camera, so you got some cuts. Are you just coming through, or did you have a question? If you have a question, you're going to have to wait till this sequence is over. You can go wait. If you're just coming into work,
yeah.
Cruise on through. Now we take our linoleum again and we hit every one of these screws. This is the hyper important one right here, is to get lanolin on these top cap screws. If there's any one place that absolutely must be lubed. And in my experience, this has been the most effective product. I've only been using it for about 7 years. But it's been the most effective of the products that I've used at combating the long-term rust that gets on guns that are actually taken out and used. This guy who owns and uses this gun is a hunter. And when I say that, I mean, we're talking about a guy who shot well over 100 elk. And that ain't nothing to sneeze at. A hunter, that means rain or shine, Pacific Northwest, snow, sleet. He is out there. This gun will get hammered. This ain't no show gun. So that's one thing about this. This is the real deal. And the best things that I've found are commonly not touted products. In the construction industry, I've been using a sheep-based called fluid film for a long time. Tractor guys have known this for years, farmers. You know, all their equipment smells like sheep. But the rest of us are all about buying these glitzy marketed products with the bright colors on the boxes. I'm just saying, this stuff is a fantastic rust preventative and a fantastic lubricant, but more important than all of that, it just seems to last longer than... It is amazing how many lubes go down pretty decent. A year or two later you go to change something out and not only is there rust in the threads, but things are bound up. So far, that hasn't happened with this stuff. So that's kind of the whole sequence I wanted to go through right there. Now we're just on here and we're loose and but everything is smooth now. There's no scratching of the scope. There's no, like I said, I already checked these. I already wiped these out using another method. And they come with just a little bit of this, so they're fine. It's smooth as silk in there. Now I need to go take it out and set all of my everything. But that's how you get a stress-free mounting job that's going to stay there. And this part of the gun will shoot to its highest accuracy potential, unlike an awful lot of I can't count the number of bench rest guns out there that got sloppy. Not good.